In the not-so-distant future, you find yourself in Kosolov, a grim industrial city. Kosolov is a highly controlled and secretive society. It's an industrialized nation with overwhelming authority and a devotion to its leaders. The citizens, they endlessly work to death. A hard divide between the secretive upper society and the majority brainwashed working class ensures continuation. Effectively shunned from the rest of the world, leaders of Kosolov have been free to fast-track their unethical scientific experiments to enhance their tyrannical military capabilities and workforce to create the ultimate controllable and mindless workforce. Kosolov had put in place a plan to revive the dead and set them back to work, benefiting from an already high mortality rate. Scientists have attempted mechanical implants, regenerative biomass, and a host of bizarre experiments, with numerous unforeseen consequences resulting in a catastrophic disaster. The only thing left to do is battle your way out of the city. Welcome to Anomalous, an early access title that is closing in on its 1.0 release. A game that perfectly blends old school mechanics and graphics with modern ones. And today, my friends, I'm here to help you decide if this $6 steal is for you or not. And somewhere in the video, I'll be sharing how you can win a copy of this game. So stay tuned in the video for the instructions. Now, my friends, let's do this. So what is Anomalous? This, my amazing viewer, is a first-person shooter game with 10 different weapons, 15 campaign levels, and a buttload of enemies. Some really good-looking old-school graphics mixed in with good lighting, great shadows, and a hell of a lot of blood. And the game, it actually has a story and some lore to it. But apart from what I just told you in the start of the video, there isn't really anything super interesting to know about the game, when it comes to the story, that is. It's very much a Quake-like with some Half-Life influences here and there, but most of all, it's a fast-paced shooter with a speedometer, meaning there isn't really that much need for a deep and engaging story, even though sometimes the game actually tries, with some Half-Life-like speeches from a floating broadcaster and some blue glowing circles that works as letters, giving you some lore and context as to what is going on in Kosolov. Nonetheless, the game will take you through some amazing looking environments with a good amount of difficulty options, whereas the mid-tier one is pretty challenging, but never really felt unfair. It had me dying a couple of times, but I never got frustrated by the death of an enemy. There was something, however, that really got me frustrated, but I will touch on that later in the video. I'm actually not a huge fan of these blue glowing circles with too much text in them, as it breaks the pace of the game too much for me. It stops all interactions and you're just stuck reading a note. But I do like the floating Half-Life broadcaster though. However, if you never heard or read what I just told you at the beginning of the video, you would have no idea what it's talking about, because it doesn't really make sense unless you know what I told you at the start, as the game never really introduces the story in a proper way. So how is the gameplay in this story-filled shooter? Well, it's pretty good and it's not that good. Let me explain. First of all, I want to emphasize that this is a solo-developed game that is selling for a whopping $6 when it's not on sale. And taking those things into consideration, this is an absolute fantastic deal that is hard to match. However, the game has its ups and it has its downs. I'm going to share both of them with you right now. Let me start with the gunplay. For the most part, it is actually really good, but it does have some improvement potential. Now, I especially like the automatic rifle, the dual wielding of the pistols, and the pulse rifle. However, they could all use a little more visual feedback to them when being fired. And apart from the assault rifle and pistols, I actually thought that all the guns sounded quite underwhelming. Not enough loudness, not enough punch or feedback from firing them. I wanted to feel like I'm firing something powerful and deadly, and I just didn't feel that with these weapons. And as we know, the Boomstick, the shotgun, the holy grail of weapons, the most important gun in any shooter game. Of course, this game has them, both a single barrel and a double barrel one at that. But they fail to deliver. They have way too much spread, making them feel way too weak. You have to get really up and personal to actually deal some damage. And neither the audio nor visual feedback is there. It just doesn't feel as good using them as it could have felt. However, something really cool is that you can dual wield a lot of the guns in the game. For example, the single barrel shotty and the pistols, and that somewhat amps them up, making them feel and actually be more powerful. And that's especially noticeable with the pistol. It goes from completely useless to pretty damn good. Unfortunately, that's not the case for the shotty. It actually still feels pretty weak. So the Gunplay is a really mixed bag of some pretty cool weapons with the option to akimbo most of them, but pretty much all of them lack that punch that is so needed for them to feel satisfying. And worth mentioning also is that none of the guns offer an alternative fire mode, but it doesn't really feel necessary in this game since the variety of the weapons is so huge. It still offers that depth to the combat that alternative fire modes usually bring. Now when it comes to the enemies that you will be shooting with these guns, well, they're pretty cool in my opinion. Now I actually really like the enemies and their variation. They range from flying aliens, brain-dead zombies and human soldiers. And I want to say that their movement is very basic in the game right now. Either they clump up and move towards you, or they move very minimalistic and tries to shoot you. But it's not over there. In the next update for the game, the enemies will receive some improvements, making it just a little bit harder to kill them. They will have the ability to dodge your attacks in a much more sophisticated way and move in less predictable patterns. And that's another cool thing about this game. Although it is closing in on its 1.0 release, what is left to do before it reaches that, it's not adding more things, but making the things that are already there better. Like making the maps even more beautiful than they already are, improving the enemies, bettering the animations and so on. And that to me is a sign of a dedicated developer who wants to bring us the best that he can do. But as is now, the enemies they do fine. Sure, they could use a little improvement, but I still had a good time killing them, and they did put up a challenge now and then. Now for the most part, it wasn't that hard, but I came across some road bumps here and there, where I had to bring forth the hidden powers that I possess inside to slay everything. It's giveaway time! And what do you have to do to enter the giveaway? Well, first of all, you have to like the video, dislike it if you don't like it, leave a comment down below, let me know that you want entry into the giveaway. And lastly, join the Discord in the description. Why? Well, because that's where I will announce the winner. If you don't have access to Discord, let me know in the comments and I will reach out to you some other way. Good luck, friend. Now, the design of the levels is the game's biggest weak point. The objective is to find colored keys to unlock the colored door that matches the key. And that sounds all easy and well familiar, but with its labyrinthine design and no freaking map, it was incredibly frustrating and hard to find the keys or doors sometimes. And to amp that up, at a later stage in the game, you're introduced to a grappling hook. Now, the grappling hook is awful. It feels stiff and it's not used to give you an advantage in combat or anything like that. It's there to help you solve platforming puzzles. And these platforming puzzles almost made my freaking head explode out of frustration. Okay, I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting really frustrated right now. Once you finally figure out how to traverse them though, they're not that hard. But tether points makes no sense and they really confuse you, making it really frustrating at times. And once you finally get to the top, yeah, well, you realize, fuck, this is not even where I'm supposed to go. And once again, you're lost, not really knowing where you're supposed to go. It might sound like I'm complaining a bit much here, but overall, the game is a fun ride. It has its moments of frustration and the guns, they do lack a bit of punch. But other than that, there is a good variation to the guns. The enemies are plenty and they are varying. The combat, it still has those oof moments where you pull off something that not even you knew that you could do. It offers a great challenge with great difficulty options. The movement, it feels tight and good, but it could really use a double jump or a dash of some form. Come to think of it, a double jump instead of the grappling hook would have been mwah. But no, we're stuck with the bloody hook. Now the music is actually created by the same dude that is making the game, which is a cool detail considering the music is top tier. It's a really good metal soundtrack that tries to amp up with some kind of janky dynamic audio that sometimes work great and sometimes not so great. However, for the most part of the game, it does the job and it does it really good. But I cannot show it to you because it is copyright marked, so I can't play it here on YouTube. Now the guns audio we already covered, but the enemies we have not, and there really isn't all that much to say about it. The sound as you expect them to, with a nice touch of meaty goodiness. When making them explode into bits and pieces, that is. And that takes me to the visuals. This is one bloody spectacle. Some maps literally has you walking through blood-filled floors and walls, and you can often add even more blood to them by exploding your foes that stands in your way. But not only that, the game's levels are incredibly varying in their locations. You will go through forests, research facilities, a city, and much more, all with distinct visual designs to them, jam-packed with details and breakable stuff. And those things combined with the excellent mix of old school graphics and moderns makes this one of the game's strongest aspects. Not a single level was boring to look at, and the majority of them had me go, wow, this is beautiful. If the guns would just pack a little more punch to their audio, this segment would have been top tier. But now, unfortunately, the audio is left behind. But it still has an amazing soundtrack to lift it up a little bit, but it's copyrighted. And the graphics, they are good, like really good. And I'm still standing by that, even though that the game has some graphical glitches here and there. Like you can see through textures and some are clipping a little weird, but nothing that can't be fixed. And it doesn't really bother the gameplay or your flow of the game or anything like that. It's just annoying to look at. Now in conclusion, yes, I would highly recommend this game. It's priced too cheap and it offers a hell of a lot more than you'd expect to get for $6. It has some improvement potential, sure, which is totally fine, especially since the game is not completely finished yet and the quality of the game is being worked on. I could be wrong on this, but I do have a feeling though that the price will go up after it's done. So if this piques your interest now, I'd highly recommend go and grab it right now. Now before you click off this video and maybe go and grab this game for 6 buckaroonies, well, why don't you check out these amazing videos? You might just find another game that you really like in there.